Hi, everyone. This is Rohit from Life and Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Graham Eisner, who's the author of the book Just Ask. He's devoted 30 years to understanding the power of client referrals for businesses. In his 10 years as a private client salesperson at Goldman Sachs, he developed a methodology for referrals from clients, internal partners, and intermediaries that made him one of the most successful sales professionals. He developed training programs 3 years as consultant and trainer, teaching a system with thousands of professional salespeople for clients such as Barclays, Deutsche Bank, Seven Investment Management, and other leading brands. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rohit. Very good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. So, you've had such a great experience in sales. What made you write Just Ask?
I have always been looking for the easiest way to find new clients. The most powerful way to find new clients is the whole way I've operated all my business career. And referrals became that route very, very early on for me. So at Goldman Sachs, I knew, for example, that all the senior people, they all knew people via their personal business lines. And the same feeling came for me from my clients and from other sort of intermediate relationships. So referrals has been my focus for really 30 years. And therefore, I've learned a lot, not just from myself and how I operate. I've trained on the subject within Goldman when I was there, and also for the last 20 years with my own business on how to help people. So really, the culmination of it was the book, because I've learned a great deal from people training them. What is it that holds them back? Why do they not ask? How to ask is I did it myself, and then I've trained on it. So it was exciting to put it together in a book.
Got it. And we'll talk about about the book and the Just Ask principle. But I wanted to understand, how did you make your way into sales, especially when it came to companies like Goldman Sachs?
Well, it's really been in my genes my whole life. I just love to sell, and so it was natural for me when I was leaving university. I set up 2 magazines while I was at university, which was basically selling advertising space and filling up these magazines. And so when I was going to go to operate out in the big world, when I approached Goldman, it was going to be in a sales environment, and the most entrepreneurial way or area was this private client area.
Interesting. And what were some of your early lessons when it came to what truly a great sales guy is?
I think I know people always say it is about listening, but I think that's just so. I think it's questions and listening. The questions that we ask people, if they're really thought out, they receive much better answers. They receive respect from the person you're asking, and they don't waste time. We have an hour in a meeting. We can waste 15 minutes if we want, but in those 15 minutes, you could achieve so much, found out so much information. Therefore, the combination of really, really good questions that I've thought of before, and then very, very good listening. And listening to the extent of, that there are 5 levels of listening. Let's say, one could try and be number 5. It's listening with empathy and understanding and illustrating for that person that you have understood, and then taking it to the next stage, in my opinion, is really powerful in the meeting. And I think the third thing is, I think this whole thing of sort of moving to the close in the right way, professional way, and as fast as we can is really important as well.
So, super interesting. And especially when it comes to sales leaders, what is the right time to make the first sales hire? Should it be the head of sales, or do you think it should be a junior sales rep, especially when it comes to startups?
So you're saying, sorry, who should be the person who makes the sale?
No, especially when it comes to hiring the first sales hire. Do you think it should be the head of sales, or do you think it should be the sales rep, a junior sales rep?
Okay, interesting. Well, I think in terms of a salesperson coming to an organization, they have to. There are obvious motivations and ways of operating that have to fit within the culture. I'd imagine that the more senior person is going to get very much quicker the culture of the organization that this person is supposed to fit into, and the sort of demands and ways of being that they're going to have operated in. However, I do think that junior salesperson is equally important to meet them and give their perspective of how this person is going to fit in. You know, I remember at Goldman, I had 35 interviews to get in. And the reason for that is because they want perspectives from lots of different people, because we all approach and understand, you know, I know people aren't going to have that many interviews, but it's just the idea.
Interesting. And especially in your book, you talk about the 7-step approach. Also, what is the 7-step approach all about?
So first of all, asking for a referral is something that a lot of people shy away from, or they know they should do it, but they never really do it. Or if they do it, they don't really do it maybe as well as they could. And what my experience has shown is that asking for a referral is a very thought out thing to do. If we come from the point that every client could introduce one, let's just say one, but valuable client. If we think that a new client coming in is valuable, it's worth the effort to make it work, right? And that means to go into a meeting and just wing it, sort of just ask randomly, just doesn't make any sense. If we spend 10 minutes before the meeting really thinking how I want to approach, that's going to be very helpful. So my 7 steps comes from that background, and my 7 steps very quickly to run through them. Number 1, preparation. So has this client talked about the perfect person who could be a referral before? Do they know them? How do they know them? Could I do a bit of research that helps me find out how they know them? So that's the first point. If I can find that perfect referral that they already know. Secondly, I need to find what I describe as a bridge line that's going to make asking for the referral as comfortable as possible. And some examples of that, maybe I'll ask for feedback on the relationship. And that isn't feedback in the last 2 months. That's feedback of the holistic long-term relationship. So the service, the trust, how the relationship has evolved, the resources that have been given. And that when they reply, which we hope would be favorable, it's much easier to then set up. That's fantastic. That's how I perceived it as well. I'd love to ask your help on one thing. So it leads very nicely to ask for a referral. The second route might be the fact that you are relating them back to appreciate some of the USPs and values that they've appreciated with your business and your firm. And if they remind themselves of those, again, it leads very nicely to say, I'd love to ask your help on one thing. Or it could be the fact that in your sales team area, there's a slight shift in organization, which means you've got a few more opportunities for new clients to come in. And we're just asking some very selected clients we get on very, very well with to see whether there might be one person they'd be happy to refer. So you're using that part. Or it might be talk about the history of the relationship, and you refer them to when they came into the firm, what they were trying to achieve, and you remind them about what they have achieved on the way and how it's been achieved. And once again, that warms them to the opportunity of helping you. So that's the bridge line. The third step for me, if I haven't thought of that particular name at the beginning, I couldn't find one, I only want to ask for one name. A lot of people fall into the trap of, is there anyone you know, any family, friends, any business colleagues? No, actually, all I want is there one person you know, just one. And the reason for that is it's much easier for the client to think about it, filter it, and come up with a name. The fourth step is qualifying exactly what you're looking for. So it's very clear, and it's brave, but it's very clear what you're looking for. You're not going to get sort of a dud of a referral. You're going to get a very good one. The fifth is this point about listening. What are they going to say in reply? They might go, yeah, Rohit, I'd love to help you. Let me think about that. Now, that isn't actually a fob off. That's no problem. Well, that's fantastic, Rachel. I'd love to thank you so much for thinking about this. I've got to get back to you in 10 days about this meeting, about so-and-so, so-and-so. Can I ask you then if there's the one name that's come to you? The second listening might be, yeah, Rohit, I think there is someone. Now, you'd be amazed how many people at that point don't follow that up. But that would be, well, that's brilliant, Rachel. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of things about this person? So you ask them a couple of things. So those are the 2 things around step 5, listening. Step 6 is at least 30% of the success of it. Now we have to use our sales skills, our empathy, our relationship with our client to really get them to make this referral for you in the most powerful way. And in my opinion, that isn't that they give you an email address, they give a phone number, they say, why don't you mention my name? No, the most powerful is that they will either give a call to this person they know, or they'll meet this person they know, and they'll speak about you, the firm, the relationship, the specialness of it, and they will set up that you'll have a coffee with that person. That's what you want to happen. And one of the lines that I use to help that would be, Rachel, that's fantastic. What has really worked well for me in the past is, or what is very powerful for me is, and then you're going to say, is if you kindly could give this person a call, or are you perhaps seeing them in the next week or so? Oh, you are. Well, that's great. He's actually talking about the our relationship, and setting up the fact that it would be a great idea for me to have a coffee with this person. So you're setting it up. And step 7 is follow up. So I would say, so Rachel, I know how busy you do get. If perhaps I haven't heard from you in a week or so, do you mind if I just give you a nudge and see if you had a chance to make this introduction for me? So those are my 7 steps.
Very interesting. I think I learned a lot from reading the book, but I think the way you put it across all the 7 points, I'm going to visit back and speak to some of my clients and see if I could get more referrals. I wanted to understand: are there any 3 perfect clients to ask, or where should I start when it comes to asking referrals from such clients? Because I would have a huge pipeline, but would you recommend any perfect clients to reach out to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I really think, if people want to take this sort of seriously, is you kind of want to go into a room and you want to have some fresh air and really think about who you know, who the client. Let's just keep it for clients for the moment, but the clients that you have, and then think about the ones. Who are the ones that trust you the most? Who are the ones that like you the most? Who are the ones that you like the most? Who are the ones that bring in a great amount of revenue? Who are the ones who've got great potential in the future? Who are the ones perhaps who have referred before?
Right. So, Graham, what do you think are the first 3 perfect clients when, which somebody should ask when they want to ask for referrals?
So I think what's very important is to have a look and see who are the ones who trust you the most, that you like the most, they like you the most, that they appreciate the firm and the USPs and the values, and they've talked about that. They're high value, and maybe they've given a referral before, or they've talked about possibly introducing you. So it's really highlighting those sort of clients.
Got it. And earlier you talked about following up, and I was just wondering, when it comes to sales and also asking for referrals, when is the right time to ask for to follow up? Do you think following up every day can be annoying for the client, or do you think it's okay to ask?
No, so I think that if I've asked for a referral, I would follow it up. So I would set up the follow up. As I sort of mentioned, I would say, I know how busy you are. Can I give you a call in a week if you've had a chance to introduce? So I would say that's sort of a week afterwards. And then it's important to hear what they're saying when you're asked them to follow up. Hopefully they've said, absolutely, I'm sorry, I just forgot, I'll follow it up. And again, if they haven't done it, I would wait another week. I wouldn't do it the next day. So I'd really be sort of waiting a week or 10 days.
Interesting. And especially when it comes to tech startups, the sales leads are always looking for new hires. And what advice would you give to sales leaders on how do you structure the first 30, 60, or 90 days for the new reps?
So if I understood your question correctly, you're saying, so if they have a new hire, and how should they structure the first 30, 60, 90 days of training that person or preparing them for the role?
Yes, that's right.
Well, I think first of all, if I'm a new hire, in order to be a great salesperson, I really have to appreciate the USPs and the values of that firm. And that would mean that I want to go and meet. If I was a sales leader, I would be saying to this person, I want you to go and meet 10 different people, have 20 minutes with them, and really just ask them what makes this firm special. So that's one of the main things I think people need to get inside them, because once you have that, the whole sales process becomes a lot easier. I think the second thing is, in terms of referrals, I would be asking this person to go and map out everyone that they've known, both from previous jobs, their friends, their family, their supplier connections, their ex-clients, whoever it might be, so that I, as a team leader, can really get a sense of, where are the great links, the great warm leads, the great possible client opportunities that this person might have. And then I think, just as an aside, the other part of being a great salesperson is having great confidence, and that great confidence comes in product knowledge. So whatever the firm is, and the best and most appropriate way for that person to really get the product knowledge.
Got it. And are there any red flags that leaders should watch out for when it comes to new reps?
Well, it depends on how many people you're hiring, but if you're really trying to hire a small number of people, what I would really like to do is I'd really like to see them perform in some way before I hire them, or give them some task that gives them a sense of time to have to put something together that illustrates their motivation, their commitment, their thinking, their lateral thinking, and pursuit of final product. So I would probably get them to do that to avoid the red flag.
Got it. And also a follow-up, especially when it comes to new hires, what should sales leaders do to ensure that new hires engage product and customer success efficiently? Because a lot of times they do get they speak to new companies, but they don't always give the follow-up back to the product and the customer success teams. So what advice would you give for sales leaders so that their sales reps have a great communication with the product and the customer success teams?
Well, I think the communication needs to be right from the beginning. So the salesperson needs to understand what they need to do to deliver follow-up, and the team that's receiving the follow-up needs to explain why they want the follow-up, how they'd like the follow-up, and just make the communication as smooth as possible, and for each side to sort of recognize that they're benefiting by spending that time making the communication link very smooth.
Got it. And especially when it comes to sales reps, there are a lot of meetings that they need to go into. What is the best advice on how do we structure and choreograph meetings so that it's beneficial for both the sales rep as well as the client?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is so important, because you go to a meeting, you have an hour, you have half an hour. For me, I think a meeting is, I want to know exactly how this meeting is going to go. I want to control that meeting, and I want to know exactly what I'm going to get out of it. And in order to achieve that, I think there are a few things I need to do. Before I go in, I want to think, what are the 5 really tough questions I want to ask this client? And when I mean tough, in my thinking, I want to go deep and think slightly undiplomatically, what do I want to ask? But when I ask them, they're going to be very diplomatic, but they're going to give me the information that I really need. And I always think that I want to start with the questions. I want to learn about the client. I want to learn exactly what I want to need to know. And no questions should be ones I already know the answers to. And then obviously I'm going to have a great sense of how I can respond and what I need to say in terms of my sort of presentation of the proposal. And then I think the last part of the choreographing is I need to always give enough time for that questions and answers. Quite often people will spend a lot of time, and then they'll think they did a great job introducing it, but then there's only 5 minutes to really find out how the client's thinking, what they're responding, and how to plan the follow-up, planning what it is that leads us to the next stage. That's going to take at least 10 minutes at the end, and we need to, I think, always be really conscious of time and the watch and the decision makers in the meeting to ensure that we've got everything sealed for the follow-up and the next stage.
Interesting. And especially when it comes to sales reps, what should be their focus on day-to-day basis? What advice would you give to them, especially when they're looking at bringing on new clients? Should they structure their day in a specific way so that they're able to get the most referrals?
I mean, this is always a constant challenge for salespeople. They're always pulled in so many different directions. They always feel like they've just under pressure from everything. So,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think it's a sort of step back and really appreciate clearly what are my aims, what am I trying to achieve here, and why I focus on referrals particularly is because in terms of business development and find new clients, that is the easiest, the most effective way to find new clients. So if I was directing a sales team or a salesperson, I'd want to really spend time thinking about where are those opportunities and then carrying out those opportunities. So in terms of organizing my day, I would want to have time to be able to do that, focus, like I said, on preparing for who I was going to ask and carrying out those referral asks in all the different directions I can in those weeks, few months that it might take to achieve. And of course, on top of that, I'm managing all the other routes that I have to either bring a business or managing the relationships and just organizing my day as well as I can.
Interesting. And especially when it comes to sales managers, they have a lot of things going on. They have to manage the expectations and also meet their targets. What advice would you give to them if they want to focus on mental health and so that they don't burn out at the end of the quarter?
Well, I think I happen to do a lot of sport because I feel that's important to keep fitness in the mind and in the body. So, I would always be recommending at least half an hour of that a day. I would also recommend 20 minutes meditation a day, or at least 10 minutes, because I think I personally have seen the true benefit of that in terms of how it calms the mind, helps you be much more creative and productive. So those are two things. I think also, I mean, sorry, these are a little, but I think the balance in life is super important in order to have depth of happiness and clarity. That means your personal life has to have the balance. So there's no point spending 15 hours a day working if you're not having the personal life. That will affect how you achieve and how much quickly you will burn out. So creating that balance really early, I think, is really important. And then how you structure your sort of contracting out of work in order that you're focusing on what your strengths are, and you are focusing on what you enjoy, and you've contracted out the other parts. And then it's that whole management of people, how are you managing people either on a sort of micro management level or less micro, but then in a way that's just very contained and very organized. And the reporting to you is very structured and organized. And any meetings you have, they're just very good use of time. That you'll know in your mind whether you're wasting time, and that 40 minutes you've wasted really could have been much more effectively used. So those would be something I'd say.
Interesting. I totally agree. I think meditation and sports and just going and exercising, that can really make a big impact on your mental health. And I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
Well, I like it. There's one called Busy by Tony Crabb, he's a business psychologist. And I think it really follows on from your last question, actually, which is, it's not about being busy. We can always think it is, but in fact, really, that's not necessarily the full way of having success.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. And if you could go back in time when you started writing Just Us, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
So I think it is a recognition, probably around the point that you've just talked about, around mental health and helping, really understanding that people have a lot of pressures, and kind of taking that pressure off in a deeper sense. I probably would have done a little bit more in the book, helping people recognize why it's really important for their mental health to take away the anxiety of finding new clients. And obviously I feel this is a very, very strong way of finding new clients in the easiest way, but I probably would have gone deeper into that subject.
Interesting. And do you have any favorite online tools, for example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
For me, it's LinkedIn. I think the power of it is extraordinary, used properly and benefited properly, and a great way for people to focus in for what's right for them in their business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. LinkedIn is also one of my favorite tools. We'll put that in the show notes. And what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Just Ask?
So my website is graham-eisner.com. My LinkedIn is Graham Eisner, and feel free to contact. And obviously, my book is on Amazon. Just ask.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Graham, thank you so much for taking your time speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.